Hey friends, welcome back to Daily Sews and Stuff. I've been anxiously waiting to bring you this video, and 1,000 things have happened that have kept it from going on.
Yeah, make that 1,002. Add in an unprecedented ice storm that crippled the state of Texas, and also my top-down camera failed after only about 5 minutes of footage, which you'll see later in the video. That's where I add in some stills, and hopefully you've gotten the idea.
But I'm finally here recording this video. I am going to show you today how to take an ultra short throw projector from the box it was shipped in to projecting a pattern. And I can't wait to show you the steps you need to go through. Before I get that, I want to mention a couple of things. Promise to be fast. First, you can see my other pattern projection series right up here. That might help answer some questions about why we're projecting patterns to begin with. You can also see the video that describes the differences between the different kinds of projectors. I'm going to go a little bit into what makes an ultra short throw special in this video, but that one is more in depth about the differences between different projectors. I also want to mention very quickly, I just started a Facebook group for my Daily Sews and Stuff friends. It's the link is in the description box, and I'd love to see you there. All right, so what makes an ultra short throw special? An ultra short throw, it needs an ultra short throw. That's what makes it special. The distance between the lens of the projector and the cutting surface that you're working on, that's called the throw. And an ultra short throw only needs a little bit of space. So that's what makes it such a great solution for people who don't want to mount a projector to their wall or their ceiling, or can't. For people who don't have a dedicated cutting space and need to move it around from place to place. For people who aren't really sure they want to go through all the effort of mounting it because they're not sure if they really want to commit to this, Ultra Short Throw has got you covered. I also really like that the Ultra Short Throws come with some interactive features. Now, not every Ultra Short Throw. You have to specifically look for that. But many of them come with interactive features, and I am really excited about the pins that came with mine, and I played around with that already some, and that'll be another video. But it's so worth it. We're going to be able to do some awesome things with that. They're not needed though. And one more time, I want to make sure that everybody understands the program that you see me using is the basic free Adobe. Anything you see me use today is going to be a totally free program. I'll give you the links in the description box. You can get it yourself for no money at all. Special thanks to Sasha Sewist and all of the other amazing people in the Projectors for Sewing Facebook group for the things that they've contributed, like the calibration grid and things that you'll see me project in a little while. Also links for those in the description box because they're so helpful. And I'll also link some things that might come in handy, like cords and even where you can find some projectors like this in the description box. Some of those might be affiliate links, and I really appreciate when you use those links. It doesn't cost you anything extra, but you give me a little bit of something that I can keep sewing with and do things like buy an extra projector I don't really need to make a video for you guys. Alright, so you heard about this projector thing. You bought a projector. You were super excited. You got an ultra short throw because it kind of just seemed like that's what you heard a lot of people talking about. But now it's just sitting there in the box. Now what? Step one. Open the box. I know. Seems like a really obvious, silly step one. But this might be the scariest step of all. Jump in, dive off the diving board, rip off the Band-Aid, open the box. I promise it only gets better from here. One of the first things that you're going to notice is it's bigger than you expected. It really, like, every single person has said that. Even my short throw projector, I thought that. But these ultra short throws, man, they are huge. Don't worry about it. It's fine. We got this and it's gonna work. The next thing you'll need to notice is make sure there's no damage anywhere. Make sure that everything looks good. You know, it might be scuffed up. It's a used projector. But make sure that there's no reason to think it's not gonna work. You want to make sure that within your return frame or your claims frame on eBay, you've made sure that everything is in working order. The vast majority of the people who have been ordering these used projectors have had amazing experiences. But you are buying a used electronic from a stranger on the internet, so it's always best to be a little cautious and make sure everything is on the up and up. I'm gonna cut now to some previous footage where I opened up my box when it came to us, and then I'll come back to present Branolin and tell you about the next step. Okay, so I'm assuming this will get spliced into the video where I actually do the whole thing, but excited, I can't wait. And my kids are with my husband outside. So I strapped on a microphone, threw up a tripod, and I'm going to open this. Part of it is impatience. Yes, like, you know, 75% of this is impatience. But a little tiny bit of it is also, I want to make sure that everything is okay. And not lose any sort of like return windows or on eBay or anything if it's not. And considering that life is just really nuts right now, and we don't really know what all's happening, perhaps it would be best to go ahead and do this sooner rather than later, because hopefully, you know, we'll be doing things like moving again soon. All right, so double checking this doesn't have anything I don't want to show you. Okay, we should be good. There's a receipt in here. It came from Projectors and Things. It's an Epson Brightlink 455WI. And it has a remote, an interactive pin, a power cord. They also sent a VGA cord and an HDMI to VGA adapter. However, I am planning to use the USB port. So this is what they sent me. It actually has an audio cable as well. But I am not the least bit worried about that. They sent the power cord, and these power cords are just like what you have on a monitor or a desktop computer or a TV, or my digital piano has that. It's just a fairly generic power cord, and then a VGA cable. That's what they look like. My computer, my laptop has legacy ports, so it does have that. So if that's what I end up using, that's fine. And an Epson pen. Now, I was a teacher at a public school. I taught pre-K at a public school, and we had smart boards, but they were not Epson brand. But it is here, and that's the big thing. I wanted to make sure it was here. Comes with a remote. That is the Epson Projector remote. I'm gonna pick this up and show you inside for a second. So it's bubble wrapped, and then a very large cardboard box was used to pack it for the length, and then they've broken it down and used pieces of it as kind of stuffing. Let me show you the important parts of an ultra short throw projector. So, you've got the hood right here, and you've got the lens up underneath here. And that's where the projection comes from. When you stand it up on your cutting surface, the projection comes from underneath here directly onto your table. You've got the power and other buttons here. If you don't have a remote, these are going to be really important. And I think that just about everything you can do from the remote can be done from here. However, there aren't quite as many shortcuts. Now, you also need to be able to plug this in. Don't worry, it's just hidden. There's a little compartment right here. This just slides off, and you've got all the different ports. The power port is right here, and all the different connector ports are over here. This is the type B USB port. That's the one that I'll be using today. The cord that goes to the power is basically just a standard electronic power cord. If you have a CPU computer or a monitor, it probably uses the same kind of cord. It might have 2 or 3 prong holes there, and that just goes in. There's links in the description box if you need one. Now the USB-B cable that I have is one that we had laying around, but a really good place to go check is your Cricut or else your printer if you don't have one handy. Or, again, links in the description box. Now, you can get USB extender cords, which I also grabbed. These plug into the normal side of the USB that you're used to, the little flat side. That's a USB-C. It'll plug in to that, and then the other side is the same and will plug into your computer. Okay, so right here next to the ports is my fan. That's where the hot air is going to blow out that keeps my projector cool and working. So I want to make sure that that is free and able to move air. It comes from the opposite side of it, where there's this little door where if I push this button down and kind of get my fingernails in there and pull this up, I see the filter, which I can remove and clean if it needs. And I see there's a lever bar right here where I can focus my projector. I also believe this is where the remote receiver is. And then I just accidentally discovered earlier there's another door right here that if you open that, you can lift out the lamp and put a new one in. Not going to do that, but that's just right there. Easy to access if needed. Okay, something about this specifically to this 455 that I have. This is not true of all the projectors, and you can check in the group or in the calibration guide to see which ones it's true of. But a lot of these that have a similar number to mine have this hump on the bottom right here. And they're not really flat across the bottom. So it makes it a little bit harder to get it squared up for projection. Now, one last thing about this specific ultra short throw, and there are some other ones that do this, but you have to look for it. This is a WI, and the I is for interactive, and this sticker right here shows you that it can be used with a pin. And I showed you the pin in the unboxing video. I'll probably give you a little teaser about what it can do at the end here, but really, you're going to want to stay tuned for another video coming later in my pattern projecting series where I will talk all about the pin and all the awesome things it can do. I played around with it some, and I'm really excited about the possibilities. Let me show you the remote. Here's the remote. So it's got the power button. Now, I have a problem because the power button controls both my Epsons, but none of the other buttons on here work for that one. It's got a power button. It's got source switch right here, but it's also got specific ones right here. And then it's got the buttons with some shortcuts and then the same buttons that are up here on the projector. So I'll be using this more than touching this because it's going to be precariously balanced and I don't want to touch it more than I have to. All right, now that I've shown you all the parts to this, let's move on to the next step. Okay, step 2, make sure it works. We already checked for damage, but here's where we're going to plug things in and make sure everything is all good. Plug in the power cord, plug it into the wall, turn it on. Do you get a blue screen? I know that's bad on a computer, but on a projector, that's what you're looking for. The first thing we have to do, obviously, is connect it to power. So I'm going to take the power cord, I'm going to plug it in to the projector, and then into my power. I'm going to plug it into a surge protector over here. And I'm going to scoot my chair up to my table. This is my very fancy setup. It's just a chair, a stool. And I'm going to turn it on. Now is also a really great time to use your remote or the buttons on your projector to scroll through the menu and test out what the different options do. In just a minute, we're gonna reset everything no matter what, so you really can't break it at this point. Just be sure not to change it to a language you can't understand. And it's telling me it needs a source. So before we do that, we've made sure that it works. It turns on, the screen is blue, we're good. I want to play with some settings because I really need to reset it to make sure that anything anything the previous owner did is erased, and I'm starting from factory settings. But that means that now is the perfect time to play in the menu and see what all these things do without worrying about screwing something up. So I'm going to go to the menu. I can't change anything in the image right now because it's not connected. I can see the things, so I can see that it has different color modes and color adjusts. Signal, it has always said to me, cannot adjust the signal menu. Don't know what that is. Settings, so my keystones are at 0, but you want to make sure your keystones are at 0. But right now, if you'd like to, you can play around with the keystone just to see what that means. So for instance, if I turn it all the way to -10, you can see, you know what? I need to move my projector a little further back. You can see very dramatically that the top of my projection is narrower than the bottom. It makes a trapezoid rather than a rectangle. So if I go the other way, oh, now it's even more pronounced. Now the top is super angled in. So what this is telling me is that it is physically keystoned so much that even completely adjusting it isn't quite getting everything straight. So we know we're going to have some physical adjustments to do. Now, that's the thing. We want to physically adjust it because the more we mess with this keystones, the more we degrade the image quality. So we want to make sure that we do as much physically as we can. And we'll get to that in a minute. I'm not even going to worry about putting this back where it goes because we're going to reset these settings in just a minute. So I'm going to hit escape and see what else I can play with. Projection. Now this is interesting. You can change where it's projecting from. And I'm not sure exactly why, but when you have it on ceiling, did you hear it ramp up just now? It works a lot harder than when you put it on front pointing down. It's also a lot brighter though. When you put it to front pointing down, it dims. Don't really know what that's about, and that might be good or bad, but for right now I have it set on that setting. So you ready? Reset. Go through the menu, I'll show you here, and reset all of it. And then down here, reset. I've got reset all and reset lamp hours. I don't want to reset my lamp hours. I have no reason to lie to myself, but I do want to reset all the settings. And I am sure that I do. To get me back to factory set so that I can do what I need to do without worrying about what somebody else might have done to it before. Now that we've got a fresh new slate, step 3, connect to your computer. If I haven't mentioned it already, a USB-B cord is what's recommended here. Sasha Soest, who is like the guru of projector calibration, has found that that really gives us the fewest issues with aspect ratio and really works out best whenever we're projector sewing. So we're going to need to take a couple extra steps to make that USB-B cord work. Go to menu and then extend. Well, here, I'll just show you. Extended USB type 2 USB display. If I don't do that, later when I plug my USB cable in, nothing's going to happen. You're also going to need a driver. So there's a link in the description box, and here's where I went through and downloaded that driver.
So you go to Epson's website to this address, and I'll make sure that it is in the description box. It's also in my blog. And you scroll down and click on download. And when you do, go ahead and put it on the desktop so you can find it in a minute, and let it be the file name. It won't have that one there. I've already got it downloaded. And you click save, and it'll start downloading for you. Right here, it will show you, at least on Chrome, that it's downloading. So when that's done, it'll look like this on your desktop. And you'll double click, and you'll tell it yes. It says this file contains USB installer 1.73. Click OK to continue. That's what we want. And mine was already running it, so it's going to say that. But for yours, it'll download it for you. So then once that's done, you can throw away this installer. You don't need the installer. You'll just need the program.
Okay, so you've got the driver installed. You've set your menu correctly. Now connect the computer to the projector with that USB-B cable. The square end goes to the projector where it says Type B. And it's not perfectly square, so you'll have to turn it till it fits. Flat end is going to go into my computer. By the way, if I didn't mention this before, you can go steal one from your Cricut or your printer. What you should be looking at now is whatever was on your computer monitor is what's coming out of your projector. And you see that projected on your cutting surface. Pretty awesome, right? You'll probably get a few little pop-ups on your computer now. Mine gives this cute little image of a projector, and it also will tell me something like, what do you want to do with the storage device you just plugged in? Ignore it all. Just keep going. You don't need to worry about any of that. All it's doing is telling you what you already know. You're connected now. So you may have heard me say in other videos that I prefer to extend my display. And I do whenever I'm using a different kind of connector. It helps deal with the aspect ratio issues. But here, the USB connection kind of deals with that for us, so we don't have to worry about that. And there are some advantages too to seeing exactly what's on your screen mirrored so that maybe you can read something you couldn't read otherwise. If you're not connected, you want to push either the source search on your remote or on your projector, or on your remote you can just press the USB button, and that should bring that up and get you connected. If you're having trouble at any of these points, leave a comment, go to my group and leave a comment, or go to the Projectors for Sewing group and leave a comment, and somebody will help you out. If you're going to one of the groups, probably good too if you post some pictures and give us some details about your setup so we can help you the best. Okay, ready? Step 4. Determine your throw and mount your projector. Now, I have a spoiler. In a few weeks, few months, I don't know, life is crazy, but pretty soon now, my husband and I are going to do a collaboration, and we're going to create a mount. He's a woodworker and carpenter. You can find his channel right here. He also makes woodworking plans, and so we're going to come up with a great mount that you or your loved one can make for you, and it will mount directly onto your cutting table. And by the way, there's rumors that there's going to be cutting table plans too, so y'all stay tuned for that. For today, I'm going to use mount in quotation marks because I'm just going to use a chair and some books and stuff to make it work. If you have to move your projector around a lot, or you're not really sure that this is for you, that's probably where you're going to start anyways. So you've most likely noticed that your projector isn't quite sitting high enough yet to give you a full image on your cutting surface. So now is where we're going to raise it up and get everything level and ready. Honestly, the easiest way to do this is to just do it. Why do math when you can just move things? You could do math, but you know, that's my preference. So grab some books, grab something that'll be stable, not fabric. Something that's stable, something that will let you walk away from your projector without fearing that it's gonna fall over. Something that will let you kind of get things more exact. Books, binders, maybe a box or a crate. Find something somewhat hard. A utility cart, a chair, a stool. Be creative. That's what we do, right? Maybe you have a windowsill or a shelf right by your cutting table. That'll be perfect. Raise it up just a little bit. I found that mine needed about 4 inches or so on my cutting surface. I don't know. That might not be true. check this footage I'm about to show you. All right, so you may have noticed that my projector isn't quite sitting high enough or working well enough with my cutting image right now. So we are going to work on that. So since my chair has a bit of a tilt for when you sit, I'm going to use the binder that has a bit of the tilt the opposite way to kind of counteract that. This is where another camera angle would really come in handy, huh? Go. That's not so bad. So that's about the height that I want it. The width of my projection is overhanging a little bit on either side, but it's the right height to take up my whole mat. Maybe overhang just a little bit. I'm not worried too much about little bits of overhang because I can deal with those. But I don't want it too small or way too large. Those can get tricky to deal with. So the thing to remember here is you want a fairly stable surface. You don't want to stack it on a bunch of fabric. Number one, that might overheat it. And number two, it's not going to help hold it steady. Now, this is somewhat precarious. I don't want my kids running through here. But it's not likely to shift of its own accord, like something softer, such as fabric, would do. All right, now we're on to the most dreaded step. Step 5. Calibration. Now listen, I understand the dread that comes with this word. I had to calibrate my short throw projector like 4 different times because of different things that kept happening and I needed to keep recalibrating. It gets easier every time you do it. I promise you that right now. Every time you do it, it gets easier. I've calibrated this ultra short throw projector once, and then I'm going to do it again for you in just a minute. And it's a different kind of beast because there's not a mount to hold it still. But you can use different things to shim it up and wiggle it around and get it in the right position. I used books and paper because that's what I had on hand. Some actual real shims would be really handy because you can incrementally move those very easily. Those are like really skinny wedges that you use to plumb and level a door or a window when you're building. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. I'll find a link and put it in the description box. But really, pieces of cardboard, pieces of paper, pieces of cardstock, anything you have lying around in your crafty area should really work for this. Especially if we're just sort of testing things out right now. And this will be solved when you get a mount, when you get the instructions to make the mount, and the plans that are coming soon, we hope. Okay, the most important thing you need for this step is the rectangles and squares calibration grid that Sasha Soas created. So the link is in the description box. You can also get it through the Projectors for Sewing group. And I'll give you all that information in the description. Also in the blog post that's going to go along with this video. Did I mention that earlier? I have a website now, dailysewsandstuff.com, and there's a blog post that I wrote to go along with this video that has everything you're hearing. Maybe not everything you're hearing, but a lot of what you're hearing, enough of what you're hearing, that might be a really good way to follow along too. And it's got all the links and everything as well. So you need that, and you also probably want to look up this really cool visual that Dan Owen and Sasha Soas created together that show you different keystones and how to correct them. The nice thing about the ultra short throws is you can move them in any direction. The hard thing about the ultra short throws is you can move them in any direction. So we have to move them in all different directions. Up, down, twist, move, ah. But once we finally get it right, man, we've got it right and everything is working. So again, I'm going to show you this in just a second, but I want to make a couple points here. Number one, once you get it figured out, take a picture. Put some tape on the floor. Do what you need to make sure that you know later how to set this back up exactly the same and get to work much quicker. Number 2, finished is better than perfect. That is a saying that I have stolen from Angela Walters, and man, is it true when it comes to this. Think about when you print your patterns and you put them together. You probably don't do that perfectly. There's a margin of error for your printer. There's a margin of error for you and getting it, like, so many times I have been frustrated because my pattern didn't go together all that well. Listen, it's fine. Finished is better than perfect. It might be a little bit off. You might have one corner that is slightly bigger than the rest of it. You might have one side that's slightly bigger than the rest of it. And if you're making super precision garments, that might be a problem. But you will probably be okay.
Okay, so when it got to the editing stage, I realized there was just no way around needing that top-down view for the calibration part. You have to see what I'm doing, and that was the problem with all my previous videos. You couldn't see what I was doing. So, gonna re-record that part, and I'm look like a hot mess because snowpocalypse. But we're gonna get it done. I'm gonna hopefully get it edited and tomorrow and get this out to you guys because it has been way too long that I've been trying to get this done.
So here's a top-down view, and you can see that I've got the projectors for sewing squares and rectangles calibration grid open. I've got the imperial one open because I have an imperial mat. That's inches. If you have a metric one, a metric mat, make sure you've opened the metric grid. Sasha has written some great little instructions right here that are kind of the Cliff Notes version and basically what I'm going to go through today. You always can get more specific instructions in the guide that she wrote. I'm going to start by making it just a little bit bigger because I want to be able to see this a lot more clearly. This right here should be bigger than my mat is actually. I'm going to be calibrating with this second to largest square. And I have the benefit of having done this before. I know that my calibration is probably going to be somewhere around 30%. All right, so this is the 30 by 41, which is a little bit too big for my mat. This is the 20 by 31, which should be about the size of what is visible here on my mat. I'm going to double check. Yes, my Adobe is open at full screen. You can see that it doesn't quite take up the entire height of my mat, but it takes up the entire width and then some. I can use the shortcut Control L to make Adobe go full screen, but before you do that, make sure you follow my quick tip that you will hopefully see popping up right now, or find the tip in Sasha's guide to make sure that when you go full screen you don't ruin your zoom percentage. So I can also, and this is something important right now, move my mat a lot more easily than I can move my projector. So I'm going to start by moving my mat a little bit, and I'm going to try to line up this central red line with the center line of my mat, which is 18 inches. And then this other red line, I want to line up with the 12-inch mark, but I'm going to do it in the middle, and I'm going to notice that, man, my projection is really twisted. So I'm going to go straighten that out before I move on to the next bit. So I was looking at this top line here, as well as that center line, and trying to get them mostly at least parallel with the lines on my mat. And I know that that has skewed this line, but that line also changes some when I tilt my projector. So we're gonna keep working on that. Now, that is what I'm gonna work on next, is making my corners 90 degrees. These corners should be 90 degrees, and they are not. So I've got folded up pieces of copy paper right here that I'm going to use to wedge underneath. I might grab a couple really thin books too. I'm going to wedge them underneath my projector and try to balance it out a little bit. Remembering that I have that hump on one side of the bottom, I'm going to be sure to build up the side that the cords come out of a little bit further than the other. This has been a great use of my son's school books, by the way. I promise we actually use them for school too. If you are just ridiculously confused about what I'm doing right now, let me show you the adjusting keystones graphic. So you use this by starting in the top corner and looking to see what your mat most closely reflects. So my mat has a couple different problems actually. First of all, it's not level, so I'm going to fix that by moving my mat. Okay, so my mat has a couple of problems. If you see here, there's that bit of that twist still happening because this line is going this way and this one is almost parallel. But if they were, actually here, let me just show you. Let me remove these three. If you notice now, the top of my projection is wider than the bottom of my projection. And so if we look at this adjusting keystones, it doesn't look like this. It's not quite that wonky. It looks more like this, where the top is wider than the bottom. And so if I look above that, it tells me that the top side is too far or the bottom side is too close. So I need to either increase the distance on the bottom side or reduce from the top. Well, I can't really reduce from the top, but I can increase from the bottom. So that's why I stuck these papers underneath the front of my projector. And then if I go look, so I'm aiming for this shape. I do want to let you know really fast, there is a small typo. Shape 4 right here, the words next to it should say shape 4, not shape 1. Anyway, okay, back over here. There is still a slight problem, but you can see that it's not equally a problem. It's almost like this side is a little bit higher than this side still from the hump that's on the bottom. So I'm going to build up this side a little bit and then we'll work on the keystones a little bit more. Sometimes it feels like a lot of back and forth when you do this, and it can get really discouraging and frustrating. But this being the third time I have done this now because of the failure to record the second time. By the way, I just looked up and checked we are recording. It does get easier with practice. You learn to notice the patterns and what you're looking for to correct them. And you learn how very, very small the adjustments have to be sometimes in order to make the biggest difference. For instance, I just tipped the front of this projector too far. All right. Now, over on that side, that corner still needs to come up a little bit. That when you're looking at it, the bottom left. But I don't want the bottom right to come up at all. In fact, it may have come up too much already still. So I'm going to do, oh, well, that's no longer holding anything. There we go. Not quite enough, but that was helpful. I'm going to do one more over there. Yes. I was deciding how many folds to put in this paper, but one more seemed like the right. Now I'm also looking at this diagonal line right this second and trying to see if I can get it to line up with the diagonal on my mat. Also checking those center lines and seeing if they are actually vertical and horizontal. That will help make sure that things are lined up well. Whew, it's getting very hot at this output right now. Okay. I'm thinking everything is looking pretty close right now. This looks pretty square to me. So I did some twisting of the projector and I did a lot of shoring up of the projector. And unfortunately, because I'm only re-recording this top down, you didn't see my hands actually moving over underneath the projector. But on the other footage, you really only saw my back, so that wasn't all that helpful either. But you did see the image moving, I hope. And that should hopefully have made it clear what I was doing, along with the instructions that you can see on that adjusting keystones. All right, so now I'm going to line this back up just a hair, scoot this over to the 18 mark and up to the 12 mark, so that those are lined back up. And you can see there is still a slight twist there, but it is very, very small, less than 1/8 of an inch. I can tell looking here at the extremes of my mat, and I'm not worried about that. So my next step is to increase this zoom percentage until my boxes are a little closer to what they say they should measure. And I'm going to do that and get them close with this 8x8 box, and then I'll use the biggest box that will fit on my mat to kind of finalize that. Now again, I've had the benefit of doing this a couple times now, so I know it should be somewhat close to 30, but I'm at 25, and at 25 I can see that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and some change. So I know I don't want to go that much more. So I'm actually just going to do 26 and see what happens. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's almost 7. Let's do 27. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, that's almost exactly 7 inches. So let's skip twice and go to 29. And I'm going to recenter this a little bit so I can count a little bit better. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, almost. We're maybe half an inch, 3/8 of an inch off. Let's go to 30. That's getting very close. It's not quite big enough yet, but it's very, very close. So I'm going to go ahead and go to full screen, Control L. And I'm going to center this the best I can. Move in both my mat and my image. So yeah, we see that little bit of a twist there. You can even see it in how the horizontal line is just a little bit not horizontal here, but it's fine. I'm not too worried about it. So my 1-inch squares look really good, right? But when you get out to the bigger rectangles and squares, you notice that it's not quite right. For instance, this 20 by 30 square is a fair bit off. Well, here, you've got to ignore the wrinkliness here, but it's a fair bit off. Excuse me, it's a fair bit off on either side. I want it to go all the way from 3 to 33 to be 30 inches wide, and I want it to go all the way from 2 to 22 to be 20 inches tall. So I need to go a little bit bigger. I'm going to use Control Y to pop up my magnification, and I'm at 30%, so I'm going to type 30.2 and see what happens. Recenter. And And I got a lot closer, especially along the bottom, but I'm not quite there yet. Control Y. Let's do 30.5. Okay, so we're pretty close, except for on this side. Do you notice how these all seem to be lining up, but these don't quite seem to be lining up? And it's only, you know, at the top it's pretty close, but at the bottom it's not quite. This bottom corner needs to be raised just a hair on the projector so that it can line up properly. It's just a little bit keystoned in that one corner. Okay, now it looks like that corner is a little too tall. So I'm going to slide a little piece of paper out a ways. Not all the way out, just a little bit. Actually, I'm going to slip it behind because that's not holding it where I want it to. Okay, but still feel like that other one needs to come up a bit more now. It sometimes feels like a ridiculous game of back and forth, but we will get there eventually. Okay. Ooh, I'm liking this. Okay, let's go back and see if our zoom percentage is correct. We can see there's the wobbliness in my mat there. All right. I'm noticing it's a little bit too wide at the bottom. It's a little bit keystoned out, but not badly. So I lost some of that twist, but not quite all of it in all that fussing I just did. It's just a teensy bit off, maybe 1/16 of an inch up at the top. My 8-inch square is looking lovely all the way around. My 12-inch square is looking lovely all the way around. My 16 by 24 is looking just a little too wide at the bottom, and my 20 by 30 is looking just a little too wide at the bottom. That is a 1/4 of an inch off. Now, here's the thing. This is a 1/4 of an inch off, and that's as much as it's going to get off. It's not going to continue to get bigger. If I was basing it off of this small square, it might exponentially be getting bigger as it went out. This won't be. So, I very honestly would probably call this good and just try to cut a little bit over here and not fuss with it as much. But if you're doing something super precise, then what you're going to want to do is just get the back a little bit more up, probably at this point, rather than try to make the bottom go lower. Well, now I really like this side, but not that side, of course. Okay, and now I can see that this whole side right here needs to come up just a little bit because that's a little bit too small now. This back and forth thing is why finished is better than perfect, and I probably should have left well enough alone a second ago. Is it perfect? No, it's not. Is it finished? Yes, it is. I could probably just take a little bit of space of paper from underneath this one corner and things would be totally golden. All the rest of these you can see line up beautifully with my mat. If they are ever so slightly off, it is not a big distance. It is well within margins of what I would call totally acceptable. All right, so now I would be ready to cut. Okay, Did I say everything I needed to cover in step 5? I hope so, because there was once again an interruption. Step 6, test it out. This is the exciting part. You've made it through, your image is calibrated. It's time to test it out. Pull up a pattern. It can be one you already own. A projector file is the best. An AO works, especially if you run it through PDF Stitcher and add some margin. It has to be layered though. Or you can take a letter or A4 file, run it through the PDF Stitcher, trim the pages, put it together, add a margin. It'll be great. I have a video right here you can watch to learn how to do that. But if you have a projector file to start out with, that's probably the easiest thing for your first time. I have a great pattern that a friend of mine created. Her name is Kathleen. She owns Sunny Mountain Patterns, and you can see her Etsy shop by following the link in the description box. She has a pattern called the Toddler Adventure Backpack that my kids have all 3 loved. And it is such an amazing projector file, and it's a great one to start out with if you would like to do that. However, there are tons of pattern companies that have projector files. This is a huge new thing that is sweeping the sewing world, and it is so worth investing and getting to this place where you don't have to print out patterns. It's awesome, y'all. That does mean that you don't have paper to make your pattern adjustments on, but I got you covered there too. I've got several videos where you can follow me and see what you can do digitally to alter your patterns to fit your body. Okay, so now we're at the fun part, right? We're at cutting out a pattern. Now, I know from my last calibration step that I need to change my zoom percentage to 30.1%. So before I do anything else, that's what I'm gonna do. Okay, so now I'm ready to cut. You know when you print out a pattern and you check that 1-inch square just to be sure? That's what we're gonna do now. So I am using Sunny Mountain Patterns because my friend Kathleen does amazing projector files. Just what I'm gonna do. So she's got a calibration grid in her files. And while it's not quite as nice for the first calibration stage, it is perfect for double checking that you are right to cut her pattern. And yep, mine is showing just the same slight problems I had before, but mostly we're good. So I'm gonna go ahead and unclick that so I don't have to watch it when I don't need it. And this is all one size, so it doesn't have layers, but I would also take the time to turn off layers at this point. And I'm ready to go grab my batting, lay it down, and start cutting this pattern out. That's it, like I'm done, I can cut. And even though that did take some time to figure out, and the first time you do it, it takes the longest, I promise you will get better at this, and it will be way faster than printing and taping a pattern. This is so the future of sewing. All right, step 7, I kind of covered it already. Learn more. Learn all the things that you can do digitally to alter patterns. Learn what you can do in the vectoring programs. There are other channels that cover that stuff. Learn what you can do in Adobe. That's me, I cover that. And stay tuned for the pin, the interactive pin feature that I'm going to show you in a new video coming soon. I also have an interview with Missy Poor, the person who started this revolution, coming up soon, as well as several other things going on. You know that friend Kathleen I mentioned from Sunny Mountain Patterns? We also have a podcast that we're recording right now, and season 1 comes out in March. So please find us at the Small Business Sewing Podcast. We've got a Facebook page. We've also got a group called the Small Business Sewing Community. And like I mentioned before, you can find me on my website, dailysewsandstuff.com, at Facebook/dailysews, and at Facebook/groups/dailysews. I'll have all those links in the description box, but I would love to interact with you somewhere where we can really get to know each other, and you can tell me what you'd like to see in my future pattern and projecting videos. Thanks for watching, guys. Good luck setting up your ultra short throw, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching my video. Subscribe and comment.